everybody, and welcome to the Purple People Podcast. I'm Kyle West. Alongside me is Adam Carlson. What's up, Adam?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. We got a good show lined up for you guys. We got a special guest with us. We got Nate Weck. Nate was with us a while ago. You were on the podcast. How you doing, Nate?
Good. How about you guys?
Pretty good.
Kind of crappy.
Yeah, it could be better, right?
That's right.
Well, we're
hey,
going to do a recap of the Minnesota Vikings Seattle Seahawks game, and I've decided that the new nickname for the Minnesota Vikings offense is we will start referring to them as the Walking Dead, because nothing's happening out there. It's a bunch of zombies.
I like zombies.
Yeah, that's what they are right now. They look like the Walking Dead.
Weird, but okay. We can roll with it. So let's go into this game here. We're going to be giving away our game ball and naming a donkey of the week. So Nate, who do you have for your game ball?
Well, it's pretty obvious. Adrian Peterson had arguably one of his better rushing performances since his rookie year. So you definitely got to give it to Adrian Peterson. He's only had a half like that 2 other times. Once was he's only rushed for 144 yards plus and a half, and today he had the Bears back in his rookie year as well as the Chargers as rookie year. So you got to give it to Adrian Peterson. 2 touchdowns, really. Outside of that rushing attack, there was absolutely nothing that happened. So game ball has to go to Adrian Peterson.
Absolutely, and that's where my game ball is going to. Adrian Peterson, 182 rush yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 catches for 11 yards. They're getting him involved wherever they can, whenever they can, and he is producing. So it's awesome to see him returning to form, and he should be a strong, strong contender, if not the lead contender for Comeback Player of the Year this year.
Definitely.
All right, so who are we looking at for donkeys? What do you got for a donkey of the week?
Me personally, you got to give it to the whole offensive passing attack. You can't blame it on one guy, but you got Ponder that's in the mix. You got the pass offensive line, and you've got your offensive coordinator. I think all 3 of those guys deserve the Donkey Award.
Sounds good to me. Well, I'm going to do what you just didn't do, and I'm going to nail it right to one person. And that man is Charlie Johnson once again. 2nd week in a row.
You and your Charlie Johnson hate.
Oh my goodness, he was just terrible this game. To quote my friend John Beaver, he said, they might as well put a washing machine out there. It would block better than he does. And honestly, I can't disagree with that. I really thought the move to guard from tackle would help him out, and it hasn't one bit. He is the weak link on the line, and he needs to be replaced as soon as possible.
To be fair, though, they've all had their hiccups, and there was one play in particular where Phil Loadholt got completely blown by 2 guys. Just blew right by Phil. So
see,
the whole unit
one
needs to
play.
step
I
it up.
can let that happen. Charlie Johnson is way too often to say, oh, it's okay every once in a while. No, not when he does it maybe every other play, letting guys through, taking bad angles, choosing the wrong guy to block. It's sickening. And he doesn't even deserve to wear Vikings purple.
Well, I guess if we're going to blame someone, we might as well blame Charlie Johnson, right?
Well, he stood out the most to me, that's for sure.
Well, like I said, watching that game and watching the Minnesota Vikings on offense, other than Adrian Peterson, watching them try to pass the football, like I said, they look like the Walking Dead out there to me. I don't know what they're doing. So let's just jump right into this one. I'll start with you, Nate. What did you think just of the game as a whole?
Well, in the back of my mind, coming into today, the main thing I was thinking of was Ponder has got to have the game where he comes back, silences the critics, silences the boos that are going to really just reign over him next week at the Metrodome. He's going to have to silence all those types of things by having a game where he goes for like 250 plus, 2-3 touchdowns, and the big thing, no interceptions. And he did everything opposite of that today. He didn't go even for 100 yards. He didn't even put a touchdown on the board, and he had an interception. So somehow, some way, that interception popped up there near the end. But overall, on the day, I thought we did enough the first half, what we needed to do to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
Second half, we made no adjustments, or at least no adjustments were made based on our performance. And we looked like we were 2 steps, 3 steps behind the whole second half. We didn't play near what the potential that we've seen. We didn't look like a 4-1 team. We didn't look like a 5-2 team. We didn't look like a team that should be even in the talk right now for playoffs in the NFC North.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that one, especially what you said about Ponder. He needed to have a big game and he didn't. He had 63 yards passing total. Those are like Donovan McNabb numbers, and I had hoped personally that Ponder was past having these really, really bad games like this. Apparently not, and I guess all we can say is I hope that he's learning from this. I really do. What do you got? What do you got, Adam?
I want you to take a step back and take a look at this. The last 2 weeks, look at the defenses he's played against. 2 of the top pass defenses in the NFL. Fast safeties, good corners. These are guys that can make plays and make it hard for your wide receivers to separate. And the offensive line has been crashing down, making the pass game exceptionally hard. Ponder is making bad decisions, yes. Is he making poor throws too? Of course he is. But as a whole, it's not entirely their fault because they are playing these really good NFL defenses. And I expect, and I can be quoted on this, next week against Detroit, things will look a lot better against their weak secondary.
Well, they better because the fans are really calling for Ponder's head on a stake right now. People are frustrated and angry with how he's been playing for the past couple weeks.
People don't understand how hard it is to win in Seattle against the Seattle defense when you're already struggling to begin with. I don't see how they expected him to come in there and have a 500-yard, 7-touchdown passing game. It's not going to happen.
It really isn't. I mean, and we're not going to sit here. I mean, I know none of us are going to make excuses for Ponder because we're all going to agree that he had a bad performance once again, and something needs to change. It's just, I mean, you look at Green Bay. They went in there. I mean, granted, they had a different ending, and it was controversial and whatnot, but the bottom line is when you look at the charts, they left Seattle with a loss. Green Bay still could be possibly one of the best teams in the NFL. I think they are. I think they're going to be a big contender once it comes playoff time. Sure. But right now, I mean, the state that our team is in, we have established here in the last 4 weeks that we are still in a rebuilding mode. And we truly are. From a lot of different angles. Something's got to, I mean, everybody wants to point the blame at Ponder, and, you know, you can because he's the obvious choice. But There's so many more issues that we have going on. Look at the last 4 weeks, we've given up a 100-yard rusher. RG3 is where it all started. Then you got Stevens Howling. Then last week with Martin, and now Lynch today. So, I mean, our defense that has been very good all these previous weeks is starting to kind of dwindle a little bit. A defense that has been very strong against the run here ever since 2006 has really just taken a toll for the worst.
Well, let's take a quick minute to talk about the wide receivers because we saw Harvin go down again and get back up again. I guess you're never going to keep him down. I guess that's how the song goes. But what can we expect out of this team when Harvin can't be 100%? This team is full of players right now that are all complementary wide receivers. I don't see any of them stepping up to be that guy that can take over and fill the gap. Even the tight ends, even Kyle Rudolph, he's not stepping up at all because he's got to stay in the block, and when he does, he's ineffective down the field. It just is too tough right now to find that target that wants to be the guy to step up. I'm sure they all want to, but it's not happening.
I would really like to see the coach's tape on our offensive unit, and that's really for people who don't know what the coach's tape is. It's like an overhead bird's eye view of the field where you can see your entire offense and actually watch them run routes and see what kind of separation they're getting. Because, man, it's just tough to believe that as a unit, they can't get open at all. ever. Like, no one on this team can get open for Ponder to throw a pass to him. That's a big part of the problem. I had high hopes for Jerome Simpson that, when he was going to come back after that 3-game suspension, he'd be able to stretch the field and be that vertical threat. And we're not seeing it. He had one catch for 14 yards today.
And that was off a slant over the middle that they should have ran more often. They need to include more variety in the passing game. The darts to the side, the screens, they're nice and everything, but those are complementary plays to help you move down the field. That shouldn't be your primary attack.
Do you put that on personnel, or do you put that on Bill Musgrave?
I'm putting that off totally on the scheme. Because did you see what happened at the end of the half when they were trying to move the ball to get in field goal position? And how agonizing it was when they were throwing the 1-yard, 2-yard passes? It just lit me right on fire. I don't know if it did that to you guys, but it did to me.
I'm on both sides of the fence with that one. I can see where you'd want to be frustrated with Bill Musgrave, but at the same time, if we don't have the personnel on the field to, stretch it and be a vertical team, well, I mean, you can't really. It doesn't make sense to call those kind of plays.
You got to pass further than in the backfield or 1 or 2 yards. You can connect on a 6-7 yard pass and get out of bounds or something like that. Try to get in field goal position. To me, they were a team that just gave up.
And the part that I really get confused at is when you look at the way we played against the Jaguars in the beginning of the year, or the way we played against the Colts, or even the way we played against the Redskins when we came back. I mean, the team showed that they can come back in situations that are tough and try to make a run and have a successful 2-minute drill. But all of a sudden, when nothing's clicking, and it seems like it comes from all angles. The coaches aren't clicking. Like when you brought up a good point, Adam. I agree with you on that. At the end of the half, I don't know what was happening. There's been some very questionable calls here towards the end of halves here recently for the Vikings. If you look at the Arizona game, even at the end of that half, the first half, when there was 19 seconds left and the clock was continuing to run, and then all of a sudden we call a timeout with like 9 seconds left, and Ponder throws a pick. It's like, we're way down on our end. What are we even going to accomplish from that? And I kind of saw the same kind of thing, just uncertainty all over. And if you have uncertainty coming from the sidelines, how's that going to rub off on your quarterback?
That's very true.
I guess that's just kind of my take. And I mean, I want to believe in Musgrave. I want to, because he did good things as a quarterback coach with Matt Ryan down in Atlanta. And I mean, Matt Ryan's turned out great. I mean, we don't even need Ponder to be that type of guy necessarily right now. But the only problem is we've seen what happens to coaches and coordinators when they don't mix. And you look at Alex Smith, different coordinator, different head coach almost every year until he finally had Harbaugh, and then things eventually clicked, and now Alex Smith looks like a good quarterback. But if you don't have that type of connection and you keep switching coordinators all the time, you're going to have problems. That's why I wanted to believe in for so long that Musgrave is the guy. He's going to build a relationship with Ponder. It's going to be good, but when it doesn't work, I mean, I still want to believe in Musgrave, but I've become more critical, and I want to be more critical at Musgrave before I jump to Ponder, because Ponder, we got a little bit more stake in him.
Well, we've seen Ponder, too, having some problems with his health. He's had some knee problems and recently some hip problems, too, after this game. He took a pretty hard hit and was limping around. And when you couple that with his struggles as of late, you got to wonder if those two things are connected in some way.
I think there's got to be some correlation between it. I mean, you almost can't say there's not at this point. And even if it's a little bit of mentally, maybe he knows that I have a little bit of a banged up knee, and so that's making him try to play more safe, and he could be overthinking it a little bit when he's on the field. Ponder seems to be at his best when he's out there and he's just playing and doing what comes naturally to him. And I kind of wonder if maybe being a little bit banged up has him thrown off his game a little bit.
I got a question for Nate.
Yes.
What do you think of the whole Samantha Steele thing, where they're thinking like he's all Tony Romo'd now when Jessica Simpson was around? What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, that's. I mean, listening to Fanline and the amount of people who call in on that is it just drives me up a wall. I don't buy into that one bit, because you look at the NFL, you look at how many of the quarterbacks actually are dating people, and you're going to find out that it's actually a lot. The only reason that it's brought up with Ponder is because Steele is she's a semi-public figure. She's not even very famous, but she's partially famous, so she's out in the public's eye, and that's why her name's brought up. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't even know that we probably wouldn't even have a clue that she even exists, and that Ponder even has a girlfriend. We wouldn't even know it.
Well, she might only be partially famous, but she's 100% hot. So I give him credit for that. And that's just my opinion
there. If I had the type of football athletic body too, hopefully at least that would be kind of my expectations, to have a girl kind of like that, I guess.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
You got to give some props to the guy. He did pretty good.
Yeah, that's one thing where he's successful this year.
Coming back too. Adrian Peterson having that huge game and coupling it with other huge games. Is Adrian Peterson back, or do you think he's still around 85 to 80%?
He is, because you look at that long touchdown run that he started, or not quite a touchdown run that he started the game off with, where he got caught from behind. Previously, he would have just took that one into the end zone, and so that's why I think he's still not quite there. But Adrian being not quite there is still the best running back in the NFL.
Oh, I agree totally. I loved what I saw from Adrian.
Yeah.
I think that the running game will benefit, or the passing game will benefit from his running game eventually when things start clicking. And I think that this is one of the best things they can do for the team, especially if they decide to go with a run-first offense like they should be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that...
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, when before the season started, you had Jerry Rice coming out and saying, I suffered a similar injury, and Peterson is rushing this very much so. And looking at the way Peterson has rushed this year and leading the league in rushing, he's back. He's back better than ever. He's got the drive. The guy's a freak of nature. He's not human. I'm convinced.
We saw a spat on the sidelines between Percy Harvin and the coaching staff. What do you guys make of that?
Well, Percy's got a lot of fire underneath him, and he wants to get out there and score points and do good and look good on offense. And, he doesn't like it when they play like junk out there on the field. So I think that's a little bit of him. He wants to do good. And should you yell at your head coach? Probably not all the time, but sometimes maybe it's a little good to get those frustrations out there like that.
The problem is that the field isn't the place for that.
You
don't do that
in the moment.
Public. You don't do that in front of the cameras. And I understand people have trouble controlling their emotions sometimes, but that's something you have to keep under wraps. Save it for the meetings, save it for the practices, save it for then. Don't let the media get a hold of it and pull it apart, because now you're going to hear a ton more about Percy Harvin wanting to leave the Vikings, and it's going to be a sick media frenzy.
Now, I don't think you'll hear too much about that. I mean, if that would have been Randy Moss that would have done that, that'd be the number one story you'd be talking about. It's how Randy Moss blew up.
Nobody cares about Randy Moss anymore.
At the head. I care about Randy Moss. But I guess I think with him being injured is kind of or potentially being injured, might overshadow a little bit with him, blowing up on the sidelines.
Yeah, I think that his inability to make plays because of the pain or being taken out in key situations to try to preserve his health is really tough, because when he lined up in the backfield with the problems he was already having, and he took that hit that put him on the sideline again, all the people that I was watching the game with were looking at the TV saying, why'd they even put him back there? They should have known better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something, again, you got to put right on the coaching staff, right on that offensive coordinator, is that he is putting his players in danger. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Percy, he's kind of a roller coaster type of guy to me. All right, in the off season, I was madder than mad at him because he wanted out of Minnesota. He wanted that trade ordeal, And then 3 days later, oh, everything's good now, we're golden. And then the regular season starts and he's playing like, you finally realize that he's, once again, probably one of the most dynamic, well, he is one of the most dynamic players in the league. So he's playing like absolutely outstanding. So then I'm like back on the Percy train. Oh, you're so good. You're doing awesome. And then today he kind of blowing up on the sideline. And the thing that really concerns me, and maybe like exactly what the context of it was he was attacking the head coach. If it was an offensive issue, he should be addressing Bill Musgrave on that because, I mean, in all honesty, Leslie Frazier doesn't really do much with the offense. He's
Right.
there. He's kind of monitoring Bill Musgrave's calls, things like that, and really big things. But for the most part, when it comes to play calling or time that he's out on the field, for the most part, that's coming through Musgrave. Musgrave's really taken over full reins of that offense. So it really kind of concerns me as to what exactly the content of what they were talking about is. Will we ever know? Probably not. And it could have been something small. It could have been something bigger than what we even know. It could be something that we're speculating maybe has something to do with playing time, or maybe it has something to do with, them saying maybe you're getting banged around too much, maybe you need to take a break, or just not opening up the field enough. But it could be
Right.
something even bigger or different than that. It really could. And the sad part is we'll never know.
And just to throw one more movie quote out there, I do wonder sometimes if Percy Harvin is going over Musgrave's helmet and talking to Frazier about things that should be addressed to the offensive coordinator. You don't go over his helmet. Let's go in and talk about the defense for a second here. Let's talk about Marshawn Lynch. Because we talk about Adrian Peterson being a beast, but Marshawn Lynch is a beast in his own way. You can't expect to stop Marshawn Lynch. You can only hope to contain him. I know that people said that about Michael Jordan, and I'm probably stealing it. But guess what? It's true.
Yeah, Marshawn, he had 124 yards and a touchdown on the ground, and I said in last week's show that containing him was going to be the key to Minnesota. If they were going to pick up a win, they needed to contain him, and they were not able to do that. And like what Nate had said earlier in the show is that we had started off the season doing good against the run, and then these past couple of games, for whatever reason, we've been gouged, and I don't quite know what's going on defensively all of a sudden that they can't stop the run.
I think a lot of that has to do with LaTroy being hurt and having Evans in there for a lot of snaps, because I really do believe that Evans isn't really what he's marketed to be. He's not the defensive tackle, run-stopping guy that everyone really believes him to be. I do think the Vikings will be looking for a defensive tackle in the draft, a big fella to take his place, a Pat Williams type guy, and I would be all for that. But there's a problem there too, is that right now I'm not sure that getting a smaller guy would be better to help the pass rush. Because right now the defensive ends and the defensive tackle are having trouble sacking the quarterback. They're getting pressure, they're getting close, but they just can't seem to get it done. So the defensive line that was the big bonus, and it was the strong suit of this team, has sort of faded into the background.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we do to improve there? What can we see happen?
It's cliched, but players need to step up. I mean, I guess I don't really know. I mean, they just gotta play. They gotta tackle. That's one of the big things, and that's got less to do, I guess, with the defensive line. I'm talking more about the secondary, but they've got to improve on the tackling on this team. That's one thing that's been bugging me for quite a bit.
Definitely. We've seen a lot of players taking bad angles. We've seen players not wrapping up. We saw, again, Harrison Smith in this game, and we railed on it last week, and I felt bad for it. But we saw him not holding his arms out to tackle, just throwing the shoulder, and that is not acceptable at the NFL level.
Yeah.
Too many guys.
I understand you want to lay the wood, but it's not always the best way to do it.
You had too many guys go for that big hit, like you said, Adam.
Yeah.
And
they're trying to jar that ball loose, scare up the offense, make things change in a way that benefits their team. Change the pace of the game, make the wide receivers afraid to come over the middle of the field. And I think that it's nice that they want to do that, but practically it's not going to help the field position game because you're going to end up giving up more yards. All right, let's talk also about a little bit more of the special teams. Let's talk about Chris Kluwe having a little bit of a rebound this game. His punts were better this game. We saw some better distance from him. We saw some better hang time. And we faced another team this week that had a really good return game. And we managed to hold them in check, which was nice. I appreciated that. What do you feel? Do you feel that Kluwe's job is safe still? Or do you feel like the guys they worked out were there as a scare tactic, or do you think they're actually taking a look at them?
Yeah, no, that was a scare tactic that they were doing to Kluwe. He's going to be here for the remainder of the season, unless he completely starts to shank a bunch of punts and just look like junk out there on the field. He'll be with us for the rest of the year, and you know what? I'm pretty confident that he'll be back next season too. I still really don't read too much into the people that they brought in. That was, like I said, that was just them. In case Kluwe gets hurt, this is, potentially people that we've looked at that we could bring in that could fill in for him. And yeah, it also had a bit to do with them, telling him, hey, if you continue to play bad, we will, we could replace you. But no, I don't think that they're actually like, that's in the game plan for the Vikings to do anytime shortly.
Yeah, I think he's a little too valuable right now, being the holder and the punter, and the fact that he's not really punting too terribly, despite him still being off the ball a little bit. He's still performing at fairly high levels, so I don't see him going in.
He's way too good on Twitter for the team to cut, too.
He's entertaining, and he brings some of those media people in, that's for sure. But speaking of guys that are really good, let's talk about one guy on special teams that was perfect this week. You know who I'm talking about?
Blair Walsh.
Blair Walsh. He hit that 55-yarder, and it was a beautiful kick in the rain with time ticking down on the play clock. You don't get much more clutch than that.
Especially with the 12th man raining down on you like they were, too. I mean, Blair Walsh stepping up and what was he going into today? 18 of 19?
Yeah.
And coming out with a 55-yard field goal. I mean, you don't see many rookie kickers make that. And I don't know if the accuracy would have been there for more than 55, but he's got a leg on him where he could have hit that from 60.
Oh, yeah. I look forward to seeing what he can do in the future as far as distance goes. And he also has not missed a field goal from beyond 50 yards this season. So I think the Vikings should be a little less afraid of letting him try 57, 58, 60 yarders. Let him try them. Get those points on
at the end of the half.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. If the better time management can be there, that can happen.
I don't know, guys. I would rather them throw a pass to Devin Aromashodu that goes for 2 yards and he stays in bounds instead of trying a field goal.
Those are nice, too.
Oh, I tell you. I don't know what I can do. All right, let's talk about next week's game before I go into my final rant here, because I got one that's a little different this week. So
I'm excited for different.
All right, let's talk about next week's game against the Detroit Lions. I believe it's a noon start game for those of you in Central Time.
Yes, it is.
Let's talk about that. Kyle, we haven't heard from you a whole ton. You've been kind of quiet this show so far.
That's fine. I like giving our guests plenty of time to speak up. I have, we do the show every week. Anyway, Detroit.
So tell us about the game, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the Lions. It's a home game for Minnesota, so home field advantage. We really need to pick up a win, and we really need to see Ponder and this offensive unit click and play at a high level. He is going to be facing a lot of, and I'm talking about Ponder, is going to be facing a lot of pressure from the fans. Because if they go out there and the first time they go out, the first time he throws a pass that's a little wobbly or a little wonky, the boo birds are going to come out, and people are going to be yelling for Joe Webb. I got some, don't let me forget, Adam, I got some quotes I want to read from our followers over Twitter. I asked them about Ponder, and the general attitude right now is that people are not happy with, not happy with what he's doing. So he needs to come out and play good for his own sake. And I think that the Vikings could do this. I think they're going to wake up and they're finally going to realize that we can't go out there and we can't pass for 63 yards on offense and expect to win a football game.
Well, we're looking at a completely different defense, too. We're looking at a Detroit Lions defense that the secondary's just demolished. They had to go and get a guy out of free agency to start. I mean, they're not looking good. This is a team that Christian Ponder should be able to pick apart, and he should have time in the pocket because their pass rush, and I know I'm going to get a lot of crap for saying this, but Detroit's pass rush is overrated. So the most pressure to be put on this Minnesota Vikings team against the Detroit Lions isn't going to come from any of the Detroit Lions players. Like you said, the biggest pressure is going to come from the fans, the people in the stadium, and I don't know if that's going to be I don't know if the Vikings can handle that much tension for their own team in the stadium. It's going to be a really weird environment. It'd be kind of cool to talk to one of the people that actually went to the game and see what the atmosphere was in there, because I bet you it's going to be really just mixed and coupled with like hatred, and I don't know. It just seems like a bad environment for me. Bad mojo.
In a perfect world, here's what's going to happen: is we're going to get the ball first. They're going to kick it. Percy is going to return it for a touchdown. We're going to go up, and then we're just never going to fall behind for the rest of the game. That's in a perfect world. Is it going to happen? Probably not, but we can hope, right?
We can definitely hope.
Yeah.
Kelvin Johnson was limited this week. He played limited downs. He played third downs, but he still managed to have over 100 yards receiving. Now, with Chris Cook gone, we're looking at a little bit of a different dynamic. We're probably going to see A.J. Jefferson matching up against him, and I don't believe that's going to be as effective as a shutdown technique. So we could see Calvin Johnson go off if the support isn't there for A.J. And let's talk about that run game, because this week we saw the Detroit Lions offense run for 3 touchdowns, and that is a problem that the Vikings have been having, is giving up those run yards. Previously, you could not worry so much about the rush, and you could play the pass against the Lions. These days, you can't really be too sure what you're getting or what you're doing. So how do you feel this game's going to go next week, Nate?
Well, I'm just going to jump real quick here back to Christian Ponder. I mean, it could be the worst case scenario that I see happening. I know Kyle mentioned the best case scenario. Mm-hmm. The worst case scenario I see happening is they introduce the offensive starters. Because when Christian Ponder's name gets called, if it is the offensive starters, he's going to get booed before he even takes a snap. So, I mean, you got that coming at you. But I mean, this is a division team. I mean, these are the teams that you know the best. These are the teams that you can game plan around the best. Now, saying that, Detroit's got the same advantage that we do in this. So, I mean, we have to come out into this game, kind of wipe off exactly what's happened, know that we have a bye week coming, and just kind of put everything we have into this game, because the next 4 games that we have are against division teams. So if we're not going to wake up this week, we're going to get completely shut down when we have to all of a sudden take on Chicago and then Green Bay on the road, and then Chicago once again, because Christian Ponder and this offense, I mean, you look at what Chicago's doing on the defensive side of the ball, they're absolutely phenomenal. So, I mean, this is going to be a good test. This will be a really good test for us this week to go out there and just really try a few new things, but try to keep it simple, because right now I think you almost have to go back to basics with the way this offense is being run. Go back to kind of what we were doing with the Jacksonville game, but don't try to go with Percy Harvin in the backfield all the time, because every time you don't have Adrian Peterson on the field and you put Percy Harvin in the backfield, everybody in the stadium knows it's going to Percy Harvin. You're not fooling anybody. It's just like when you have Joe Webb out there for Wildcat last year. everybody had an idea of exactly what was going to happen. And I mean, you got to switch things up a little bit with those personnel, but you want to keep it relatively simple for your quarterback and hope for the very best. And I think we can beat Detroit, but you've got to be able to. We know we can beat Detroit. We did it already, but we have to come out with our own unique game plan. We have to have a great week of practice, and we have to have some serious sit-downs with some of our players. I'm not just saying Ponder, but defensively, like you said, Harrison Smith's a guy that's going out just trying to fly and hit people. We have Brinkley, who's doing sucky in coverage. He can't play. And, I mean, you have players all over the field who are excelling in some areas on some plays, but falling apart on others. The consistency is just not there. So I think almost as a team, there needs to be a team meeting sit down and individual talks with some of these players, with other coaches, and just kind of regroup and say, guys, what are we doing this year? Are we going to be that team that falls apart, or are we going to be the team that they thought was going to fall apart, but we just went on a little bit of a cold streak? Who do we want to be remembered for at the end of the year? Because who we thought we were going to be at the beginning of the year is kind of who we're acting like now. Do we want to prove these critics wrong? I think we get the win, but I think it's not going to be a pretty win. I think we need this bye week really bad.
Now, you guys all know that if you guys want to see my prediction, the best place to do that is on facebook.com/purplepeoplepodcast. And you'll see my weekly predictions. I usually have 10 predictions each week. It's a lot of fun. I wish you could go there and write your own prediction, talk about mine, or just talk about how you love cats. I don't know. Just talk.
How did you do for your Seattle predictions, Adam?
I haven't scored it yet, and I'll have it up in a little bit.
Nice. I always look forward to what you come up with for that one.
All right. Now, my end rant is less of a rant and more than a strange question. And I'm going to pose this to you two guys.
All right.
What do the Titans, Chiefs, Raiders, Cardinals, Cowboys, Packers, Rams, Panthers, and 49ers all have in common?
Pop-Tarts?
And keep in mind, this all pertains to the game this week.
The game this week? Gosh, I literally have no clue, Adam.
Each of the teams I just named failed to score more than 20 points against the Seattle Seahawks defense. Minnesota scored 20. So when you're taking a look at this team and you're saying they can't score points, take a look at the Seattle defense and see that Minnesota scored 20 points against them, and then you're going to have to take a look at yourself again and say, hey, maybe it's not as bad as I thought.
Well, you can thank Adrian Peterson for for putting up those points for us.
I'm not going to divide it out into, this run blocker did great, he deserves some of the credit for the points. Michael Jenkins blocked downfield, he deserves 3% of the credit. It's the Minnesota as a team. They scored 20 points. And that's as much or more than any of the teams I just named, including some very tough teams like the Packers, Rams, even the Cowboys, Titans. These aren't bad teams. The Rams, Panthers, they aren't awful. So please remember that this team offensively, although they might look bad to you, they aren't as terrible as you think.
Very
now
true.
Let's do something kind of fun, and let's hear these tweets that Kyle's got, and we'll try to end the show with that.
Okay, yeah, I asked some of our my Twitter followers, which you can follow us at Purple People Pod. I tweet every Minnesota Vikings game that we play, and I do a lot of Monday Night Football and other stuff too, because I'm the resident social media guy. So I kind of wanted to gauge and see what people were thinking of Christian Ponder. And here's a couple of my favorites that I got. This one comes from Shane. He said, I want to like Ponder and almost bought a jersey after the Niners game, but Ol 14 will be the only QB jersey I own from now on. So we got that one. And then we got one.
14.
Yeah. And then he sent me another one that said, I'm one loss at home to the Lions away from hopping on the Webb bandwagon.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of it, we got protect him, let him figure it out. No one said it was going to be easy, just worth it. And I think that's a pretty good note to end the show on, is that, hey, no one said this season was going to be easy.
No, not at all.
You got anything for us here, Nate, before we head out?
Well, coming into the year, I think when I went through the schedule, I thought maybe 6, 7 wins if we're lucky, and here we are sitting at a 5-4 team, and we're being very critical. I mean, the fans in general are being very critical. So, from a broad spectrum of this year, I mean, it is what it is. It is reality that we are rebuilding, and that's a fact. We're rebuilding. We're trying to find our niche yet. We're trying to find our true identity with specific players, especially in the younger talent range, and we just have to continue to go week by week, and it's a learning process every time we step on the field.
All right, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. I'd like to thank our special guest Nate for being with us. I'd like to thank Kyle West because he's always here and he puts up with my crap. And I'd like to thank you guys for listening, and I'd like to remind you all, stay classy, Minnesota.